All right, here we go. Hi, Sit Lolly. Hope you had a great tournament. If you haven't already, you need to take 15 minutes to do this and then come back and rejoin us. Just make sure she does. I know, that's good. It's hard. You have to be kind of loud. You usually can't hear. Hi. They miss you on behalf. Okay, so what I want to show you first before we talk about it is this is what a scoring rubric looks like if you've never seen one. So this is the actual question, all right? And then the graders see like on part A what you had to have and what the points are for, and this is how it's broken down. And then there's pages that come after these usually that will say like more specifically how you get each point and what if this happens and what if that happens and so forth and so on. So let's go through this here together. So the function f is defined on this closed interval. The graph of f consists of 3 line segments, shown to the figure on the right. Let g be this function right here. So since this is the graph of f, we know that f equals what? G prime. Okay, and we all understand why, right? Because if we integrate f, we get g, so it has to be the derivative. Okay, so we want to find g of 3. So g of 3 is equal to the integral from negative 3 to 3 f of t dt. We agree with that? Okay, so we're going from negative 3, which is right here, to 3, which is right here. Okay? So I need the area of this triangle, whether you do it as one piece or two. I mean, I think sometimes if it's a right triangle, might as well just split it, right? So you get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is that, 6? And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4. And this is 1. So this is 1. We agree with that? And so my positive part is 10. Negative part is 1. So this is equal to 9. Okay? So if you got 9, you can give yourself a point over here. On this particular question, for this particular section, all they were really looking for was the answer. If you didn't set this up, it wasn't the end of the world, but it doesn't mean that the next time you have a question like this, they wouldn't also be looking for this. Does that make sense? So sometimes we do it, but you don't know, nobody knows what the scoring is going to be until everybody's taken the test anyway. Okay, we all good on that? All right. So this next one's worth 2 points. So it says on what open intervals contained in negative 5 to 4 is the graph both increasing and concave down. So how do we wrap our minds around increasing and concave down? The fun box, which I was thinking about this when I was about to write it down. Usually I just think about it in my head. You want to be careful because f is the derivative. When we write the fun box, we usually write f and then f prime and f double prime. So it might be better for you sometimes to write the unbox instead of the fun box and just do this part. If that makes any sense? The unbox. That way you don't get mixed up with the letters and the derivatives. I mean, it's just a thought I kind of had. I don't know if that's and then plus minus, right? So we have the function, the derivative, and the second derivative. Okay, so we want g, which is this one, or we could have named it, it could be the gun box, I guess. I don't know if that's appropriate, but this is g. The gun box. If I did g, it would be the gun box. I don't know. This is g. We want it to be increasing and concave down, which means the derivative, which is what we know, which is f, right? We want it to be decreasing and positive. Okay, so we look up here. It is decreasing. It's decreasing here and all of this, but this is positive and this is positive, and that's what we want is decreasing and positive. We agree with that? Okay. So we would say then, okay, so G, well, let me get back on a pen here. G is both increasing and concave down on, and then I forgot what they were, negative 5 to negative 3, and 0 to 2. And then so that's my answer, and it says give a reason for your answer. So I would go on to say because, or since, or I could have written the sentence the other way, right? Since G prime, which equals F, remember you have to put it like that, okay? G prime equals F is greater than 0, or you could say is positive, either way is fine, and decreasing on those intervals. I think that's fine. Yes. Okay, so 2 questions. Didn't put on those intervals, which I don't always do that either, but I kind of feel like it needs to. I'm sorry, what? Okay, so he says G is both increasing and concave down on. Okay, so you want to be careful. You used brackets, okay? Concavity is the one thing you absolutely cannot use brackets on. So since other things, it's like they'd take either one, it's almost better to always leave them open, okay? Does that make sense? Because that you'd get dinged for sure, okay? Since F equals G prime is above the x-axis, no, you're going to have to use the word positive or say greater than 0, and the slope is negative. And then these are true statements, but this doesn't tell me that you know that above the x-axis is positive, and this doesn't tell me that you know that the slope is negative, it's decreasing. I know that seems nitpicky, but when those are in the definitions, so you know what you're doing, just use those words, okay? Yeah, and then I don't usually write that either. I just feel like it kind of needs it, but it's kind of implied in the sentence also. We good? Okay, so this is how this part was graded. This is worth 2 points. You got 1 point for the correct intervals, and you got 1 point for the reason. Okay, and so let me read to you what's on this. This says the graph of G is increasing and concave down on the intervals, -5, well they have it in inequality notation, but from -5 to 3 and 0 to 2 because G prime equals F is positive and decreasing on these intervals. Like it actually says on these intervals here, or I put those intervals. This is a good question for, I'm going to write a note. This is a good question for Miss Bruce, yes. Since she has graded these, that helps. A little question mark. Okay. We good with that? Okay. So, and I have a feeling that like on this, let's say you messed up one of these intervals, but your reason was correct, you'd get the 2nd point, but not the 1st point, that type of thing. Okay, we good? All right, so then we have this. The function h is defined by h of x, so we need to find h prime of 3. So what's the first thing we have to find? H prime. What process do we have to use? The quotient rule. So we take the derivative of the first times the second minus the first times the derivative of the second all over the denominator squared. Okay? All right, well, let's finish this and we'll talk about scoring and some errors that can be made here. So then since I want h prime of 3, we would have g prime of 3 times f times 3 minus g of 3 minus 5 times 5. Oh, goodness. Thank you, yes. That's not nice. Over 5 times 3 squared. Okay. Do you absolutely have to write this step? The answer to that is no. You could skip to the fully substituting in, whatever works for you, okay? But then this is going to equal, so do we know what g prime of 3 is? Yes. Yes. How do we find that? On the graph. What is it? -2. Yes, it's -2, sorry. It's backwards on here. I should be looking at mine and not that thing. It's -2. Good job, it's -2. So -2 times 5 times 3, which is 15, minus g of 3? We found that already. So here's the thing. Listen very carefully to this. G of 3 is right here, right? If you absolutely didn't have a clue as how to do that, but you realize down here you're supposed to use that answer, you make up something and put your favorite number there. Because you clearly already lost this point, right? But let's say we had no clue, so you put 5. Either that or you just got it wrong. Like, but sometimes you just go, oh, I'm going to put 5 in there. So then when you use 5 as g of 3 down here, you won't lose the point on that if you do the rest of it correctly. You with me on that? Does that make sense? Because that's the way they're saying. So do you know how to do this? Yes, you do. Your issue was up here. They're not going to ding you twice, okay? And so, yeah, does that make sense? Or if you got 5 because you messed it up or whatever, you got this wrong, they're going to read with. That's one reason these take so long to grade, because you read with the student. Okay, so we did find it. It is 9 times 5 over 15 squared, which is 225. Absolutely, yes, yes, yes. And actually on here, on that scoring rubric, it has this, and then it has equals, and then it has this with 25x squared, basically like saying either one of them will be fine for that. So yes, good question. Equals, so that's going to give me negative 30, right, minus 45. Yes. Uh-huh. The unsimplified, wait, you did this one and what? Okay, and then after we solve this, so we get negative 75 over 225. Okay. Yes, this is totally a safe stop. That's one thing I want to talk about. Safe stop. Because 2 young men over here, and I'm not trying to call you out because we all do it. You might not have been the only ones, but we've already talked about it. On the quiz, knew what they were doing, had the right thing. Had they stopped, they'd have been fine, but they went on and made some ridiculous, careless error that we all do. And even Miss Bruce, when we were talking about this one the other day, she was like, I had a student that had this correct, this correct, this correct, and then he put like negative 1.6, like this was just weird and wrong, which means he got it wrong. Had he stopped, it would have been fine. Could I stop here? No, cannot stop here, but you can stop here, right? We good? Okay, that's right. All right, so this part C is worth 3 points, okay? So this is interesting how this gets scored, so listen very carefully. The first 2 points are for the derivative, okay? You get 2 points if your derivative looks exactly, well, not necessarily exactly, I mean, these can be flipped around, but looks like this, or if it says 25x squared in the denominator. If you clearly knew quotient rule and you made a mistake, and one of the common mistakes is, now I'm going to put this back, so don't change yours to match mine. One of the common mistakes is to do this, right? Yeah. So if you had that, you'd have gotten one of the 2 points. You with me? Okay. So now then, here's the next part of this. So you're going to get 2 points, and then your other point is for the answer. But here's where the tricky thing comes in. Those of you that say to me, I know I wrote that, but I know what I'm going to do. I know that I would actually do this, right? If you have this written, and then you actually do what was supposed to happen, you're going to lose this point because you have what's called a linkage error. You didn't use your equation correctly. You with me on that? So this whole, I know, but you know what I mean. It doesn't matter what you mean. This has to be here. Or if it's not, you better really not know what you were doing. You see the difference there? So 2 points for the correct, 100% correct derivative. And then if your answer isn't negative 1/3, if it's because you made one error up here, but clearly you knew to do the quotient rule, they'll read with you. Or if you didn't get 9, they'll read with you. And as long as your answer makes sense, you would still get that 3rd point. Oh, that's fine too, yes. Any of these, as long as you've already substituted everything in, you're good. Okay, we good with all that? Okay, so that means it's kind of nitpicky, and you can see why it takes, not nitpicky, I mean, it's good in your favor, actually. It takes a long time, because they're really seeing, do you know what you're doing, and that's really what we're looking for here. Okay, the function p is defined by p of x equals f of x squared minus x. Find the slope of the line tangent to the graph of p at the point. Okay, so let me tell you what I did. I was like, oh, look, slope of the line tangent. So I wrote point and slope, right? And then I went on and I found my point. It's negative 1, 0. And I found my derivative, which we're going to need. And then I'll tell you what other stupid thing I did in just a minute. But Miss Bruce goes, were you about to write the equation for that line? I go, yeah? Why? Why? She said, because it says slope. I was like, holy Jesus. It literally just says slope. But here's what she said. A lot of students did that, a lot, because you're used to writing the equations. So she said, if you write the equation, that was fine, but you had to have the equation then completely finished and 100% right. Does that make sense? You couldn't have messed up on the equation and they still take the slope because, well, that's all we were talking about or asking for. You see the difference there? So read the freaking question, that's what I'm saying. So we didn't need all that. We needed the slope, which means we need the derivative. What process do we have to use here? Chain rule. So p prime of x is equal to the derivative of the outside, f prime of x squared minus x, times the derivative of the inside, which is 2x. Okay? Minus 1, thank you. All right, we all okay with that? So I want, oh, goodness, okay. P of x, so this is p prime of negative 1 equals f prime of, that's negative 1 squared, this is 2, right? Yes. Times, this is negative 2, negative 3, thank you. So my brain, how the heck do I get f of, no, it's f of 2, not negative 2, what the heck? It's f of 2. Yeah. F of 2. F prime of 2. Like, how the heck do I get f prime of 2? It's the slope. Exactly. With the point, I was like, oh, Jesus. So easy. So negative 1 equals negative 2 times negative 3, which is positive 6. And guys, this was worth 3 points also. 2 for this, 1 for this. Okay? Y'all work on finishing those up. We'll talk about it some more on Monday. Have a great weekend. Don't forget your phones. Be nice humans.